brought to you by Manscaped. Make sure you check them out at manscaped.com. Use the promo code TGT20 to get free shipping and 20% off of your first purchase. I am your host for the NFL show, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in my co-host, Sam Teets. How you doing, Sam?
Doing great, Mike. How about you?
All right. And yesterday, a weird 2020 season got even weirder. And we're going to start off with a giant upset as the New York Giants defeated the Seattle Seahawks 17-12. The interesting fact here is this, Sam. In 1986, the Seahawks beat the Giants 17-12 in Seattle for one of New York's only losses their Super Bowl season.
Well, now they flipped it around. The Giants, honestly, with Colt McCoy at the quarterback, all they have to do is not make a lot of mistakes, and he really didn't make many mistakes yesterday. Let the running game flourish against Seattle defense that has not held up against it all year long. And the Giants right now, I know they're going to probably make the playoffs here. I think New York, despite facing a tough end-of-season schedule here, they're playing probably better than any team right now. And give a lot of credit to head coach Joe Judge. These guys' team playing harder than any other team in that division at the moment, despite probably being less talented than maybe a Washington or Philadelphia or Dallas as well. And frankly, I wouldn't want to play the Giants in the playoffs right now with the way they're playing.
Well, the thing about them is they play hard. I don't think they'll last long in the playoffs, but it wouldn't surprise me if they shocked somebody. But I think defensive coordinator Patrick Graham has done a great job. And the secondary blanketed the Seahawks receivers all game long, forcing Wilson to hold onto the ball and hold onto the ball and hold onto the ball. Leonard Williams feasted on the Seattle atrocious offensive line. Williams earned 2.5 sacks and 5 quarterback hits. He's a free agent at the end of the season. He's going to get paid the way it looks right now. But they're winning this game over Seattle in Seattle with Colt McCoy at quarterback, which is amazing to me.
I think it speaks volumes to the defense, what they're able to do. They were able to shut down Seattle's run game, force them to throw the ball. Although I do think Pete Carroll panicked a little bit. I mean, really, the Seahawks, they were still averaging about 5 yards per carry. So I'm kind of concerned here. Why didn't you just run the ball more? I feel like they've shifted a little bit too much towards Russell Wilson at this point. You're relying too much on him throwing deep to DK Metcalf. You had a running game out there, and you just didn't use it. Really, I mean, the Giants, the way they were playing, if Seattle just run the ball consistently the way New York did, it probably would have won this game despite having to grind down New York's defense. You mentioned Leonard Williams. He has 8.5 sacks this year. I mean, the Giants are using him in a way the Jets never could imagine. Because with New York, he was with the Jets for maybe 4.5 years. And they never figured out how to maximize his talents, but it's happening right now with the Giants. I mean, he's been great for them.
Yeah, and Wayne Gallman averaged 8.4 yards per carry, 16 carries, 135 yards. Alfred Morris is another guy who we didn't think we'd ever see again play the way he used to, but he played the closer with 2 touchdowns, including a receiving score. And the Giants basically they took advantage of opportunities, which is what a good football, well-coached football team does. And if Joe Judge is winning with these guys, I hate to see what it's like when Saquon Barkley gets back and, maybe another good draft and another good free agency. The Giants look like they have the best ceiling for the next 5 years going forward in this division.
I mean, is it right to compare this group and compare it to just right now what Brian Flores did with Miami last year? Because it certainly feels that way. They're overachieving. They're probably not going to go anywhere in the playoffs, but I feel like they're already ahead of schedule in this rebuild.
Well, there's a lot of comparisons here with Joe Judge and Brian Flores to me, and not just from where they came from. They are just hard-nosed coaches that get the most out of their players. And right now, I mean, Joe Judge, even at 5-7, I think Joe Judge at 5-7 and Pete Carroll, or not Pete Carroll, but Bill Belichick in 6-6 have done the best coaching jobs in the NFL.
No, I don't think that's a stretch. And it's certainly Bill Belichick at 6-6 right now. That New England roster that doesn't have a lot of talent. The offense is playing kind of unconventional right now with Cam Newton's limitations as a passer. And, of course, Joe Judge, I mean, Daniel Jones is quarterback. You lose him, you go to Colt McCoy. You don't have a great QB situation there. You lost Saquon Barkley in the season's opening weeks. To be where they are right now is a testament to how good these coaches are.
All right, next up, we had a little Mahomes Magic last night in Kansas City as the Chiefs squeaked by the Broncos 22-16. My concern here is, once again, the Chiefs kind of played down to the level of competition, and they waited for Patrick Mahomes to bail them out. And I've seen a lot of teams like this before with a lot of great quarterbacks. If you keep doing that, eventually it's going to bite you in the ass. But Patrick Mahomes is as good as there is right now.
He is, but I mean, they were really slow to start last night. They really kicked in the second half, but it was a slow start for Kansas City. This is not the first time this year we've seen them do that. I mean, think all the way back to week 2 when Justin Herbert got his first start of his career. they were slow in that game as well. And it's been a couple of times this year where they've come out and they look sluggish now. In the past 3 games, I mean, they won by 6 points last night. They beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers by 3. They beat the Raiders before that by 4. They beat Carolina before that by 2. This is getting a situation where these are a lot of close games for Kansas City. I keep saying they're probably going to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. I still believe that, but they're not as dominant maybe as I boasted they were earlier in the year.
I still don't believe that. And I think they're the best team. I just think the issue of stopping the run is going to be the thing that kills them at some point, because when you look at it, Tennessee, I hate to say it, but Cleveland, there's a lot of teams in the AFC there that can run the ball and play a little defense and have a pass rush. And eventually it's going to catch up to you playing all of these close games.
Yeah, it has to. I mean, people are looking at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's played a couple of close games as well against bad teams, but Kansas City here down the stretch, they've had better competition, I would agree, but they also played a lot of close games, and it's starting to become worrisome here. There really is not, to me, a team that's head and shoulders with everyone else, despite Kansas City still being my favorite to make the Super Bowl from the AFC.
All right, Sam, maybe Sean Payton is right after all. Taysom Hill looked better than he has yesterday. I know it was just against Atlanta, but it was better than he performed the last 2 weeks. Is he on to something here?
I don't know if he's on to something. I can't wait to see them play a tougher defense, because against Denver, which has a good secondary, they really didn't throw the ball that much. It's his 2 good performances this year have come against Atlanta, so I don't know what that means per se. Again, this is an Atlanta defense that forced, I think, 5 turnovers against the Raiders the previous week. So it certainly looks like he's getting experience. He's performing better against what can be considered a rising defense. I'm not going to ready to say Taysom Hill is all that yet, but I think Taysom Hill is certainly good enough to get this team maybe even past the first round of the playoffs if they need to play.
I would still play Jameis Winston. I don't care what anybody says. Taysom Hill stood back there. He proved he could read through his progressions against a defense that offered little to no pressure. This is still, he hasn't really played a good defense. I mean, Denver's a good defense, but they had no offense, and he really didn't have to do anything there other than not turn the ball over. I think Taysom Hill has surprised me. He is better than what I thought. I still don't see a guy that can take you to the Super Bowl, and I'll still be a little bit more interested when they play some better competition, which should be coming up shortly.
Yeah, they have Kansas City here in 2 weeks. They have Philadelphia next week. That should be an easy win, but then it's Kansas City, Minnesota, Carolina. So obviously the Chiefs are going to be a great game. Then Carolina and Minnesota, those are 2 underdog teams that have scrapped all year long. They're always tough outs.
Yeah, Kansas City, Minnesota, Carolina. If they win 2 of those 3, then maybe I'll buy it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think they could win 2 of those 3, by the way, because they have a really dominant defense right now. Potentially the best performing defense in the NFL the past 5
and the other
weeks.
thing is this, and it doesn't hurt Taysom Hill at all to have this, but they've got maybe the best offensive line.
Yeah, they do. I mean, really, we thought this offensive line right now is what we thought Indianapolis' offensive line would be coming into this year. It's a dominant group. There's tons of first-round picks up front. And you got Emmanuel Sanders and Michael Thomas are healthy. So is Jared Cook, tight end. Alvin Kamara, Latavius Murray. You have all the weapons. You have a good offensive line here. He's got the best supporting cast around him to succeed in this situation.
All right, next up. Baker Mayfield balls out, and the Browns hold on. Of course, if you've got your balls out, you might as well use Manscaped. Sam, the first half, Baker Mayfield was awesome. Does this mean he's figured it out?
I don't know, because it was only for the first half, and Tennessee really came storming back here at the end. They kind of took the foot off the gas. I don't know if it's because Tennessee got into the second half and just made adjustments there. They got into the locker room and tried to fix things, or it's just that, I don't know, maybe they just got a little lazy. Maybe the Browns got complacent. It's hard to tell. I think Mayfield, and I personally have been very critical of him in the past couple of weeks, but I think Mayfield has figured at least something out. He hasn't thrown an interception, I believe, since week 6 or week 7. It's been a while. So he's not turning the ball over like he was last year when it was like every left and right, every throw was going to our team. He's had the past couple of weeks, he's been turnover free. I think he's improving. I just don't know if I'm ready to say, he's all that.
Well, my problem is the Cleveland defense completely shut down Derrick Henry. And I don't know that they completely shut him down or just the fact that they got a huge lead, so they kind of went away from him. But they did shut down Derrick Henry. Myles Garrett, one of the better pass rushers in football. Cleveland can run the ball, but really we thought a lot of points might be scored because of the running game, and it wasn't. It was because of Baker Mayfield and Ryan Tannehill. And I'll tell you, this is not, I don't think, a tremendously huge setback for the Titans. They're still tied for first place. And what we did see was, what were they down? 38-7 at halftime. And
Yeah, it was a 31-point difference.
Yeah, and Ryan Tannehill basically got them back in that football game. And to me, the fact that he can do that tells me for sure now that they just can't beat you if Derrick Henry goes off. If you stop Derrick Henry, you still got to deal with Ryan Tannehill also.
Yeah, in a week where Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson didn't play that well, Ryan Tannehill really stood up and proved himself. He might be in my top 3 this week for the quarterback power rankings based on his performance, because really in the second half, it was all Ryan Tannehill. They weren't running the ball with Derrick Henry. Because while he did have some decent numbers, you can't play down 31 points and run the ball with Derrick Henry. That's just not how you're going to catch up. They went to Ryan Tannehill and connected with Corey Davis and A.J. Brown all day long. He is one of the best quarterbacks in football, and if maybe they turned him a little bit earlier, they might have won this game.
And I don't want Browns fans saying Cedar disrespecting us. They're talking about Tennessee. The Cleveland Browns are a legitimate threat. I mean, anytime you've got Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, if Baker Mayfield is not turning the ball over, this is a team that can win games in the playoffs, Sam.
Yeah, we're going to learn a lot about them here in the final 4 games because they play Baltimore. And that's going to be tough because they played them in week 1. We're going to see how these two teams have changed since then, whether the Browns are going to have the upper hand. They play the New York Giants the week after that. The Giants, obviously, we've talked about them quite a bit already. We'll see how that defense matches up against Baker Mayfield and Nick Chubb. Then it's the Jets. That's an easy win. And then Pittsburgh to close out the year. And Pittsburgh had a 38-7 win against them earlier this season. So we're going to see really how much this Cleveland Browns team has grown.
Well, I think what we'll see is that Cleveland now is better than Pittsburgh and Baltimore.
He loves doing this, Mike. I think Pittsburgh's still going to beat them.
They won't. They won't. Pittsburgh is not that good because they're
going to beat them.
They're not going to beat them.
Yeah, they will.
Whatever. Cleveland will own their ass just like they always do, Sam. Next up, the Green Bay Packers smacked the Philadelphia Eagles, and now we've got a quarterback controversy in Philadelphia, Sam.
Yeah, Doug Peterson came on against the radio earlier today and said he has not made a decision on who's going to start next week in the Philadelphia Eagles matchup against the New Orleans Saints, and that usually means that he's going to change quarterback. So I'd assume that it's actually going to be Jalen Hurts and not Carson Wentz next week, which is kind of – there's been a lot of speculation flying around Philadelphia right now. There's some rumors actually that Doug Peterson might just resign after the season ends because he doesn't want to be there.
Bailey will be the new head coach.
Yeah, I hear people saying Deuce Staley is going to be the next guy. He's their running back coach right now, I believe. But they're pushing heavily here, and it really sounds like Doug Peterson is kind of have a rift with the front office right now. He's back Carson Wentz the entire year. Now it seems like Jalen Hurts has to be the starter. I think Peterson probably is going to lead this offseason, whether it's because he's fired or because he resigns.
I think Peterson will leave and he'll immediately have a job somewhere else, and hopefully Frank Reich will be his offensive coordinator. But it won't happen because Frank Reich's safe, I think. And Jalen Hurts, I don't know is the answer. I think the problem here is Peterson is so hell-bent on Carson Wentz and making Carson Wentz successful that they just throw the ball too damn much.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't understand why you're not running the ball with Miles Sanders.
You can't stop anybody running the ball.
Exactly. And you have Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders, to me, entering the year was a top 10 running back, but you only give him 10 carries the entire game. Give him 25. Let him run the ball a little bit more. So there's a lot of talent here. If you just give him the ball and give him a chance, because right now you're making Carson Wentz throw to death against the Green Bay Packers defense, whose strength is stopping the passing game. They can't stop the run. You put Carson Wentz in a bad situation again, and of course he fails. Of course he fails more miserably than he should. But I just don't know. This whole Philadelphia team is a mess. I think Carson Wentz is mentally just fried right now.
Yeah, and I think we both agreed a month ago we thought Philly was going to win the division. But right now, they look like, them and Dallas, one of those two is the worst teams in this division. I never thought, and I know that I said at the time, I think the Giants or the Redskins could win. I didn't really think that. I just said that because it sounded cool at the time. But right now, it really looks like the Giants or the Redskins are going to win that division. And I think the division could be decided tonight. And if the football team, sorry, I called them the Redskins. I apologize to all the indigenous people out there. But if they beat Pittsburgh tonight, I think Washington's going to win the division. I think if they lose, I think the Giants will win the division.
Well, because Washington has a much easier schedule, right? I mean, looking at their final games, it's Pittsburgh. They still had a tough one, actually. San Francisco, Seattle, Carolina, and Philadelphia. So it's not like they have an easy path there either.
But, yeah, that's why I'm saying they have to win tonight. They can't drop a game behind the Giants.
No, because you won't recover with the way the schedule ends here. We do have some people actually in the chat asking questions, it looks like.
Oh, I always forget to check that. Hold on here. We got David, love seeing Colt play good enough to lead the Giants to a win. Did Dan Bailey kick himself out of a job, Sam?
I don't think he's going to be fired just because they have had a kicking issue with the team for years. Like Minnesota's always had a little bit of kicker issue since Ryan Lundgren pretty much, but I think he'll be around just that after this year, he's probably going to be gone.
All right, our friend Steve Rizzer. The Giants have a very good chance to win the division. Their defense is legit. I'll tell you this. The defense is legit because the coaching is outstanding. Whether it's the head coach, the defensive coordinator, Joe Judge, and I wrote this in the article I wrote about Zach Taylor and the Bengals today. Joe Judge is a man, and he's a guy that you'd want to go to war with. His players want to go to war with him. That's why the defense is legit. They play harder than the other team in most cases. And like we said, right now, I think the Giants winning this division is 55-45 in favor of the Giants winning the division, Sam.
Yeah, I agree. I think last week I said Washington was probably going to win because of the schedule they have left. But really, the Giants are proving that their defense is good to match up against elite offenses and shut them down.
All right, next up. Who won last week in our picks?
Oh, you don't want to know the answer because it was actually Steve Risley.
It was Steve Risley. Steve, if you're watching, you won. But who won between me and you?
You got me by one game.
All right. And this is one of those games, I think, right?
Yeah, it was. I picked the Cardinals, and you picked the Rams here.
All right. So the Rams get a win 38-28. I think this is the case of, and we're going to talk about the Raiders in a minute. The Raiders and Cardinals, maybe one of them makes the playoffs this year, but I still think these teams that are a year or two away, probably a year away, and I think we saw this. I think the Cardinals have huge matchup disadvantages when they play the Rams, and I think we saw that yesterday big time.
Yeah, I don't have enough depth at wide receiver because you have DeAndre Hopkins, but they can't really do much against Jalen Ramsey because Jalen Ramsey has been outstanding this year. So you have to turn to your second and third options. You don't really have much there. And frankly, the Rams' run defense is fantastic. I mean, they have a great defensive front that gets after Kyler Murray. And Kyler Murray, his size came into play the other day. I mean, he's getting passes batted down. He couldn't see cleanly from the pocket. It led to his one interception the other day. So there's a lot of issues here for the Cardinals. And just this matchup just goes very poorly for them against the Rams team that has a very good defense.
All right, and Jared Goff, 37-47, 351 yards and a touchdown. He scored another on a keeper at the goal line. And the thing about it is this. I think Jared Goff is average, but his receiving core is one of the deepest in the NFL. Robert Woods, 10 catches, 85 yards. Cooper Kupp, 8 for 73. Gerald Everett, 6 for 44. When you look at that, they're not on the level of Kansas City when it comes to explosiveness, but this is a complete offense.
You can go even deeper than that. Say Van Jefferson, the rookie, Tyler Higbee, a tight end, Josh Reynolds is a very big receiver. What it really comes down to for me, though, is potentially can they run the ball in the playoffs? Because yesterday they were able to run the ball. They had Cam Akers run for 72 yards. Darrell Henderson added 49. And they both scored touchdowns. And you can run the ball like that in the playoffs, they're going to make it to at least the divisional round. They're going to get past the first round, guaranteed if they can run. But if they can't run the ball in the playoffs, it's basically curtains for them. I think they're a one-dimensional offense. They're going to get shut down eventually. But you have both those facets in there like they did the year they made the Super Bowl. They can make a deep run here.
All right, next up to New York Jets. The Raiders get a miracle finish. This is, don't you think, reminiscent of the Heidi game, Sam?
All right, educate me, Mike. Say what it is.
You don't know what the Heidi game is? It was a regular season game, and I think it was 1968, where at 7 o'clock, the Raiders and Jets were still playing, and I think it was one of the teams had a lead. I don't even remember what the hell it was now. But what happened was NBC cut the game off to show the movie Heidi. And you had all these people blowing up the phones and everything because they took it off in New York even. I mean, they took it off in Oakland. They took it off all over the country. And people didn't get to see the end of the game. And I think it was the Raiders had this unbelievable comeback at the end of the game where they scored 2 touchdowns in the final minute and won it. That's why it's called the Heidi game. And now we have the Greg Williams as a dumbass game where for some reason with like under 10 seconds left at midfield, they decide to run an all-out blitz, put 3 guys in coverage, and one of the guys you're single covering is Henry Ruggs, who's one of the fastest guys in the NFL. Derek Carr hits him on a touchdown. Jets win? No. Raiders win because Adam Gase should be fired. Greg Williams is fired. And this was one of this is actually the worst finish I've seen for a team since the Bengals lost to the 49ers week 2, 1987. And that game was the Bengals had the ball 4th and 6 on like their own 35 or 40-yard line. And Sam Weiss decided he was just going to run a play because he figured it would take that long to run the ball or run the clock out. James Brooks takes the ball in a sweep, gets tackled with 2 seconds left. The 49ers come up and they go trips to the left, and they're on like the 38-yard line. They put Jerry Rice by himself on the right-hand side. Against Jerry Rice, the Bengals decided to go single coverage, and they did it with Eric Thomas. Eric Thomas ended up being a Pro Bowl corner. He was a great cornerback, but he was a rookie. This is the second game he's ever played, and you put him on an island with Jerry Rice. You've got all the coverage going towards the 3 guys where you think the Hail Mary is going to be thrown. Joe Montana drops back, doesn't even look at those 3 guys, and just throws the ball to Jerry Rice, who goes up, catches it, and they win the game. And the Bengals season pretty much imploded from there. Luckily for the Jets, their season had already imploded. And this is just a dumpster fire that just when you think it can't get any worse, it gets worse.
Yeah, Greg Williams calls a cover 0 blitz with less than 20 seconds left in the game. I think it's actually 15 seconds left in the game. And this was after play. The play before the Ruggs touchdown, Nelson Aguilar had beat 3 Jets defenders deep in the end zone. He was by himself. It's just that happened that Derek Carr missed him. So the play after getting beat deep, you go single coverage, you do a cover 0 blitz, and Lamar Jackson, not the Lamar Jackson from Baltimore, Lamar Jackson, the undrafted cornerback from Nebraska, is covering Henry Ruggs, a first-round pick who's the fastest guy coming out of this year's draft. And, of course, he gets beat deep for a touchdown. What would you expect?
Yeah, and then Darren Waller had a career day, 17 receptions for 200 yards. Say what you want about the Raiders. They didn't play well. But the important thing here is they won the game. Derek Carr, 28-47, 381 yards, 3 touchdowns and an interception. Several underthrows and overthrows. But overall, he played all right. But this is the thing. Right now, when you get to this point of the season, it doesn't matter who you play. It doesn't matter how you play, as long as you get the W at the end.
Oh, I'm glad to hear you say that, Mike, because that really boosts my self-esteem as a Pittsburgh Steelers fan that you agree that just winning is what matters.
I hate to tell you this, but I'm the one that keeps telling you that Big Ben should be an MVP contender, and I always have him ranked in my top 5 as a team, don't I?
Yeah, it's true. You do.
I'm just telling you, when it gets to the playoffs, they're going to get their ass beat.
Well, the Raiders won yesterday without Josh Jacobs. Obviously, their Pro Bowl running back was not available, so I think they're only going to get better from here. They've had a rough 2 games. The loss to Atlanta, this game against New York. But once they get Josh Jacobs back, I'm sure everything will fall back into place.
Yeah, and the thing is hold on, we got a comment. Mike Honcho says Heidi is a great movie, to be fair. Not really. But all right, I'm sure if you're a 12-year-old girl, not that you're a 12-year-old girl, Mike, but 12-year-old girls loved the movie Heidi in 1968. Next up, we've got the Patriots, who are rolling. The Patriots are now 6-6. They put up a dominant performance yesterday with a 45-0 win. And remember, this is over Justin Herbert, who's supposed to be the next big thing, and people are comparing him to, Joe Burrow. He didn't look like he was anywhere in Joe Burrow's stratosphere yesterday. Cam Newton ran the ball well. Damian Harris, 16 for 80. Newton, 14 for 48 and 2 touchdowns. The thing that strikes me here is this. The New England Patriots roster is nowhere near the Chargers roster. The New England Patriots roster is nowhere being a team that should be 6-6 right now. Now they're on a winning streak, and they're winning this game. I mean, a lot of coaches will give lip service to there's 3 phases of the game, and they're all equally important. The New England Patriots yesterday blew this game open in the second quarter, really for the whole game, with the play of their special teams.
Yeah, really. I think they had 2 special team scores the other day. So that's what they've done. This is a team that's coached in every facet of the game, which is why sometimes they have special teams plays that set them up well to win these sort of games. And winning 45-0 against the Chargers team is pretty damning. I would think this is the final nail in Anthony Lynn's coffin. I think he's probably done in Los Angeles. I don't know. I know you don't want to change necessarily a rookie quarterback's coach 1 year in. We've seen that sometimes mess with quarterbacks in the past.
Why not if they suck? Because
Anthony Lynn has to be gone though, right? He's got to go.
Yeah, it's better to get it switched after a year, especially where you had a year where not as much practice, not as many OTAs. So, I mean, you switch the coach now, I don't think it's as big a deal. What's really tragic is if you keep the same coach and all of a sudden you're 4-12 next year, and after a second year, you're changing a coach.
Yeah, that could be even worse. So I think you change the coach now because you are a very talented Chargers team. On paper, this should probably be a playoff team or a team in position to make the playoffs at the very least. Meanwhile, the Patriots, they've seemed to shifted what their offense is focusing on. They're not passing the ball nearly as much as you would expect from a traditional offense, but they're winning football games. And really, that's all you got to do here down the stretch at the end of the year. And they're still not mathematically eliminated from the playoffs.
And we have Gunnar Olszewski.
Huh?
Gunnar Olszewski. He was a stud yesterday.
Oh, there you go. Okay, I see what you're saying. I was like, I thought you were talking about a comment or something like that. No,
he returned to kick 70 yards, 2 more punt returns, 1 for 14, 1 for 61. This is another case where a guy nobody's ever heard of, i.e. Wes Welker, Julian Edelman, becomes a man because of Bill Belichick.
Yeah, he's great with doing this kind of stuff, finding these players and putting them in positions to succeed. And that defense did really well the other day, too. They had 3 sacks on Justin Herbert. I mean, this Patriots team, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, obviously, but it feels like this is a team that could give the Rams trouble when they play next week. The Dolphins, the Bills, and the Jets are their final matchups after that. I mean, they could win 3 of these games.
Yeah, and Greg Gorecki, who I think is old enough to have been watching this game when they turned it off, says, not talking about Mike, who said Heidi was a great movie. He said, not as great as the end of that game would have been. And I think the ending of that game, correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, but I think it was Daryl LaMonica throwing a touchdown pass to Warren Wells to win the game. Warren Wells is one of the great underrated wide receivers of all time. You never heard of Warren Wells, have you, Sam?
I have not. I'll admit that.
Have you heard of Daryl LaMonica?
Yes, I've heard Daryl LaMonica. I know Daryl LaMonica is. You
better, because I was going to mute your ass if you hadn't. All right. Now, here's something we never get used to saying because it hardly ever happens. It's usually the other way around. The Detroit Lions get a come-from-behind win. And this is a big win because Matt Patricia's gone. And it almost never fails that when a head coach gets fired in the middle of the season, usually not too many people are big fans of him. So the team will play their ass off just to show him how bad he was. I want to remind you, Sam, at the start of the year, I said Chicago would be last in its division.
Yeah, you know what? It looks like they're trending that direction right now. They're tied with the Lions at record, but they have maybe a tiebreaker against them. The Lions are still in last place somehow. But it feels like Detroit's trending in the right direction. They're going to play hard to finish off the year and prove that Matt Patricia, they hate him. They hate him there, really. And he drove plenty of guys out of that locker room, including guys like Damon Harrison and Darius Slay. Now they're playing hard. And really, Matt Stafford had a great game, 402 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. Adrian Pearson turned back the clock for 57 yards and 2 touchdowns. Marvin Jones as well, 116 yards and a touchdown. And this Lions team, I could see them winning a couple games down the stretch, maybe giving the Packers a little run next week because they have offensive firepower.
Yeah, and if you wondered why Matt Nagy doesn't trust his quarterback, look no further than Mitchell Trubisky's 4th quarter fumble that led directly to the loss. On a 3rd and 4 from the 17-yard line, the signal caller dropped back. And as always, no pocket presence. He didn't feel the backside pressure. He gets stripped. Detroit recovers. Adrian Peterson gallops him for a 2nd touchdown. And pretty much it's on from there. And the Bears actually were what the Lions usually are. But you know what? If you're in the NFC North and you're the Vikings and the Packers, how cool is it to be in a division with the Bears and the Lions, who are 2 teams who, outside of 1985, since about 1963, have been perpetual screw-ups that find ways to lose?
Yeah, it must be great, especially in the past 10 years or so, because they really, this decade, have not been that great. Maybe they had 1 year in Chicago with Jay Cutler where they were close. But other than that, they really have not been a good team. Neither of the Lions. The Lions have been even worse. Although the Lions, as somebody used to say in the chat, they do have a lot of comeback wins actually the past couple of years, especially under Matt Stafford. But really, it must be a fun game to play these 2 teams twice a year, having 4 games against the Bears and the Lions combined. And that's 4 easy wins right there, usually.
Sam McGinnis, who could have come on the show, but he didn't say he wanted to, but I think he wants to come on tomorrow and talk about quarterbacks, says Bill is getting it done with almost nothing. And then Sam gives us Lions have most comeback wins in a regular season, 8 just a few years back. So, Sam, did they win a playoff game? Greg Gorecki said it was Charlie Smith, I guess, instead of Warren Wells. The story sounds better with Warren Wells, though, Greg, just because I wanted to bring Warren Wells up because I think he was a great underrated wide receiver. So that's good. We got 2 guys, who we get to talk good about. Are the Bengals the worst coach team in NFL history?
I mean, it's certainly a very slow start to Zach Taylor's career, probably the end of his career. I would hope it's the end of his career as a head coach after this year. I mean, just for your sake, but who knows if it's going to be or not. I mean, they're the Bengals. They probably won't fire him.
For my
But
sake,
423
Joe
and 1.
Burrows. Yeah, 423 and 1. I think that is the worst winning percentage in history, right?
I don't know. I could check on it. I could see what it is or not.
It's got to be close. It's got to be top 4 at least.
Yeah, I could worst winning percentage in NFL history. Let's see if I can find out what it is. But Zach Taylor, I mean, the winning percentage is 16.1% of the games are wins. I mean, he's not pulling anything off here in Cincinnati.
He's in
They have a really good team. They do have offensively at least, they have a good team.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. Talent-wise, the Bengals are probably a better team than the Giants. But coaching-wise, the Giants are infinitely better than the Bengals. The Bengals' issues can be summed up by wide receiver Mike Thomas, who was flagged for unnecessary roughness and kick catch interference for hits on Jakeem Grant on consecutive punts. The second sparked a sideline clearing brawl. And the great thing about that was Brian Flores, since he's a grown-ass man, went towards the Bengals sideline while Zach Taylor just stood there and hoped that somebody would grab him. And then the bad thing is the next punt, Mike Thomas, who had those 2 horrible penalties, is back on the field for special teams again. Right there, it shows you there is no accountability in Cincinnati. If you do something stupid, you will not have to pay the consequences. And see, as a coach, the greatest asset you have to get players to do what you want them to do is to sit their ass on a bench. That's the only way they learn their lesson, and he won't do that. So I got nothing else to say about this game. It's sickening.
Yeah, it certainly is problematic for them. And Zach Taylor, it's one of the worst. It's not the worst. I believe there are coaches out there who have gone through a season without winning games. There's someone who went 0-13 like 70 or 80 years ago. But it's one of the worst. 16% certainly puts you towards the bottom there. And this game, when you lose Tyler Boyd early, I think he had only 1 catch in the game. He was probably your best player on the field. You lose him early, and things just go down from there. And there's nothing really much to say for this game. Cincinnati had an opportunity here. It was only 19 points put up by Miami. They just blew it.
All right. Sam says they did not. They haven't since 1991. In 1991, who did they beat in the playoffs, Sam?
Me? This Sam?
Yeah, you're the only one I can talk to right now. Well, I can talk to Sam, but he'll have to type back.
What was it? Was it Dallas?
Yes. I think it was like 34-6 too, or 38-6. It was fun until the next week when they got beat 41-10. Greg Gorecki says I nominate Hugh Jackson as the worst in Cleveland, but I could be wrong. But Hugh did have the 1 year in Oakland without much talent where he went 8-8 and then got fired, and he should have been fired. So Hugh has done enough as a coach to put him ahead of Zach Taylor, who has done absolutely nothing and will do absolutely nothing. Next up,
what about Freddie Kitchens? Freddie Kitchens have to be up there too, though.
Yeah, but Freddie, they at least had the sense to fire him after 1 year, right?
That's true. They got him out of there pretty quickly.
All right. In Houston, they have a problem, and that is a very bad offensive line, which cost them the game. Deshaun Watson deserves better. He deserves a better receiving core, a better front office. Actually, it sounds like Deshaun Watson plays in Cincinnati. And it looked like they were going to get this game won, but they get a bad snap at the opponent's 2-yard line with the game on the line. And then it just kind of goes to hell. Phillip Rivers, he's old and injured, but he could still throw the ball. 2 days shy of his 39th birthday. 39th birthday. He provided some hope to the Colts that he can get the job done for at least 2 more months, despite dealing with a ruptured plantar plate that will require off-season surgery. T.Y. Hilton showed up, 8 catches, 110 yards, and he didn't get hurt. So that's the trifecta for him. I don't think Phillip Rivers is going to make it out of this season alive, though.
No, he certainly seems like he's struggling towards the end here, but he do had 285 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's hanging in there. He's having a very good resurgence second half of the year, but you do have to wonder, the hits keep piling up. Is he going to get injured in the playoffs? Are you going to be able to survive like this? You certainly have to have a little bit more of a running game than they did the other day. Jonathan Taylor, 13 carries for 91 yards. You can get that kind of production out of him every week. The Colts certainly have a shot here to make it to the second round of the playoffs. I don't know if they will. I probably don't think they will. But if you can get the running game going, this could still be a second-round playoff team.
I'll tell you what, I'm to the point where anybody that makes the playoffs probably has a shot to go to the Super Bowl from what we've seen this year.
Really, the teams with the best winning percentages in the NFL right now, the Saints, they've got Taysom Hill as a quarterback. The Chiefs, they've started games slow a couple of times, and they've almost lost to the Raiders twice. Pittsburgh, I mean, we know Pittsburgh has issues. Like,
You
there are
notice,
teams
you
up
notice
there that
this?
have problems.
Pittsburgh's undefeated, but when you bring up the best teams, you list them third.
You finished with the last one, right? You finished with the best for last.
I don't think so. Next up, the Vikings squeak by the Jaguars. Who gives a shit? All right, tonight, Monday Night Football at 5 o'clock. The Washington Redskins, there, I said it again, will battle the Pittsburgh Steelers in a huge game for the Washington Redskins. I don't think we would ever have thought this, but this is a huge game for the Redskins, Sam, and they are the Redskins.
Yeah, they're one game back from the Giants right now. Washington's 4-7. New York is 5-7. They pick this up. They're right there with them. New York again. It's a huge game for them. They lose here. The final games they're facing the schedule, the 49ers, who have been a pretty good team, to be able to come out and compete hard with teams they play against. I think they could have a chance to win that game, but I still think San Francisco is a pretty underrated team who could beat them. Then they face Seattle. Then it's Carolina. Then Philadelphia. The only guaranteed win on the schedule remaining is the Philadelphia game, I believe, in Week 17. Other than that, you're probably going to lose the rest of your games, or you have a good chance to lose the rest of your games. So I think they absolutely have to win here. But for Pittsburgh, I think Pittsburgh also needs a win here as well, because look at their schedule. They play the Bills, then the Bengals, then the Colts, and then the Browns. And if the Browns are legit, that makes 3 winning teams in our final 4 games.
And that
so
makes,
they probably need a win here too.
Hear me out. The Cleveland Browns will win the AFC North.
All right, Mike. Let's see. Let's see if the math works out here. What's Cleveland at right now?
They're 3 games ahead of 3 games behind the Pittsburgh Steelers. If Pittsburgh wins tonight, Pittsburgh's going to win the division. If Pittsburgh loses tonight, the Browns will win this division. The Steelers, if they lose tonight, next week in a short week, have to play the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. Then they get to play the Bengals. So that's like playing McNeese State if you're Alabama. But then they host the Colts and they go to the Browns. They easily, if they were to lose tonight to Washington, could lose 3 of those last 4 games, which would put them at 4 losses. Then if Cleveland wins out, Cleveland's in, and they win the division. Got you scared.
I have
now.
a hard time believing it's almost impossible to believe that the Browns could actually win their division.
The Browns finished with the Ravens at home, who they should beat right now with the issues the Ravens have stopping the run. They play the Giants on the road. They play the Jets, and then they get the Steelers. If Cleveland is sitting at 11-3, waiting on Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh is 11-3 or 12-2, who wins the division if they tie? Because the Browns will then have a win over the Ravens. The Steelers have 2 wins over the Ravens. So would the Steelers take all ties?
I think the Steelers would take the ties because they would have the most divisional wins.
But remember this: if you lose tonight, you're only up 2 games. And if you're only up 2 games, you're done. Because you're going to lose to the Bills. You're probably going to lose to the Colts, and you're going to lose to the Browns. So then you got 4 losses. Then what the hell are you going to do, Sam? What kind of shit are you going to talk once the Browns win the division?
Mike, is there any shit we can talk the Browns win the division?
I'm defending it. I just predicted it. So, you're the one that's got to defend it.
I don't think they're gonna. It's not gonna be a problem. They'll beat it. They'll beat one of the teams, the Colts, the Bills, the Browns. They're gonna win one of those games.
Sure they will, Sam. Keep telling yourself that, but you got to admit right now, just me bringing up this topic made your asshole just a little tighter.
I would be it'd be very damning if the Browns are able to win this division for every team involved.
All right, Mike Honcho. That's a Browns take I like to hear. So Mike we got an awful lot of Browns fans here.
Apparently. I don't know if I like it.
And Sam says that's just not right. What's just not right, Sam? The Browns winning the division, probably.
Yeah, it's probably what he's talking about.
Yeah. All right, last but not least, we have a very interesting matchup tonight, the late game in the Monday Night Football doubleheader. COVID's been really good when it comes to watching football on TV, though, because we get a game tomorrow night, too.
Yeah, it kind of spreads it out. I'm kind of enjoying that, honestly.
Now, if we could just get that stimulus package so I'm not homeless next week trying to watch it on my phone, it'll be even perfect. But the Buffalo Bills travel to San Francisco to take on the 49ers. This game, to me, is a complete and utter toss-up. I think Kansas City, Kyle Shanahan's done a great job with what he's had to work with this year. I think Josh Allen, the Bills have done a great job. I really want to pick the Niners in this game, and I know our friend Bobby Sheridan Report did. I'm going to go with the Bills to win this game. but I think it's going to be a really close game. I think Vegas believes that. That's why the point spread's anywhere from 1 point to 2 points. But I'm going to go with the Bills in a close one.
I think the Bills are probably going to win as well, but if you're taking the Bills here, this is my chance to catch up a game in our standings for the week. So, I'm going to take the 49ers here and roll with the underdogs and say that Nick Mullins does just enough to give the 49ers a win here.
All right, and I'm picking the Redskins over the Steelers and the football team over the Steelers. I'm picking everybody over the Steelers. Go Cleveland Browns. It makes me want to bark and throw a milk bone.
You hate the Steelers that much, huh?
No, I do. I used to hate the Cleveland Browns, but then they started being as pathetic as we were once they came back from, oblivion. So now it's really hard to hate. And see, Greg Gorecki says we are good people. I've never had a Pittsburgh Steeler fan type on here, we are good people, because Pittsburgh Steeler fans as a whole, I mean, there's a couple out there that are all right, But other than that, I mean, I'll give it you and everybody else an idiot. David Burnworth, who I think writes for the Pennsylvania Football News, the stimulus package, myth the bitch won't allow it. I think that Mitch the bitch won't allow it. And I think he's talking about Mitch McConnell. Have you ever heard of Mitch McConnell, Sam?
I've heard of him, but I have no idea who he is or what he is. I know he's a politician. That's all I know.
Have you ever been to a Turkish prison?
No, I have not, actually.
Have you ever seen the movie Airplane?
No, I have not.
If you had, that joke you would have got.
Probably. There's a lot of jokes I probably would have gotten if I had seen more movies on the show, Mike.
I know. You need to see more movies. You still haven't seen Hoosiers, right?
No, I have not.
That's a damn shame. It's almost un-American, Sam. Are you a Democrat?
I'm not either, Mike.
You're not either, Mike. That means you are, because you would be man enough to say it. And see, you shouldn't be either. You should just be an independent, like David.
But that's what I meant. I am an independent.
Okay. Independent of what? Independent of winning an AFC North division this year, because the Cleveland Browns, I'm telling you, if Washington wins tonight, you can book it, you can mark it down, you can take it to the bank. The Cleveland Browns will win the AFC North. The Cleveland Browns will win a playoff game, and then they're going to beat the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship game and go to the Super Bowl.
You might be taking it a little bit further with that last one there, Mike.
And then, since they're the Cleveland Browns, they're going to play the Saints, and they're going to be up 27-0 at halftime, and they're going to lose 28-27.
I might actually be okay with that finish.
Why? Because,
it would just be fun. It would just be fun.
It would be fun. No,
someone else's misery is my fun, Mike.
No self-respecting Steeler fan would ever think it was fun if any other team won, would they? I thought all you guys were arrogant and thought you were better than everybody else.
A little bit.
A little bit. All right.
A little bit.
So it's true. Here we go. If you have seen Airplane, you should also watch 0 Hour.
I've heard that name before. I don't know what from where.
Mike Honcho says, damn, hottest Brown take. I would like to bring up the fact that I was kidding about them beating Kansas City in the AFC Championship game, but I'm not kidding about them winning the division. And I do think that they match up well against the Kansas City Chiefs if they play them. They can run the ball. Myles Garrett, cracks Patrick Mahomes in the back once, who's the backup quarterback for the Chiefs.
Like Chad Henne or Matt Moore, someone like that, a former Dolphin.
Then the Chiefs go to the Super Bowl, or the Browns go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, we talked about, we said that Tennessee was one of the worst matchups for Kansas City because they could run the ball, and Cincinnati just out Tennessee. So there's a chance here.
You mean Cleveland?
Oh, yeah.
See? You're so afraid of that Bengals game, too. The Steelers may not win again this year. Because I can feel Ryan Finley having a game of his life, throwing for like 100 yards and just beating the Steelers 3-0 in 3 foot of snow.
I hate games that are low scoring like that. That's so nerve-wracking when you see those kind of close ones, but it's also a lot of fun. I would love a snow game here at the end of the year.
Oh, wouldn't that be cute, Sam? Did you remember 1976 Bengals-Steelers snow game?
I think you know the answer to that already, Mike.
Yes, it was one of the greatest games ever played, so I'm sure you would. It was also heartbreaking. Mike Kruzak was the starting quarterback for the Steelers, and if the Bengals won, they win the division. They didn't. But it was 3-0 Bengals at halftime, and it was like 55 degrees or 50 degrees at the start of the game. At halftime, it started snowing and put like 8 inches of snow on the field. The Bengals had a 3-0 lead late into the fourth quarter, and the immortal Booby Clark fumbled the ball inside of his own 10 while we were trying to not run the clock out. Fumbles it. Steelers recover. Franco Harris runs the next one into the end zone. Steelers win 7-3. And then the Bengals had a shot the next week to win the division by beating the Oakland Raiders on Monday Night Football, but we lost 35-20.
Yeah, actually, I do remember you writing about that in one of your articles about whether or not the Bengals were cursed.
Yeah, they're not. They just suck. And then in 1977, we finally beat the Steelers. It's like 30 degrees at Three Rivers or Riverfront Stadium. The Bengals score a late touchdown. I think it was Bob Trumpy catches one over his shoulder. Bengals win. All they got to do is go beat the Houston Oilers in the Astrodome the next week, and the Bengals lost 21-17.
Seems like it's a recurring theme.
It is. But, at least my team sniffs the playoffs, unlike the Detroit Lions and Sam McGinnis. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. Make sure, let's face it, no grown man wants to nick their nuts. So make sure you go to manscaped.com because it'll keep you from nicking your nuts, and you'll be smooth as what, Sam?
Oh, baby's bottom?
Don't say that because that sounds really gross.
That's a good point. I don't have another one.
Neither do I. So we're just going to go ahead and wrap it up. Follow us at Grueling Truth and use the promo code TGT20 at manscaped.com for 20% off your first purchase. I want to thank Greg, Mike, David, Sam for chiming in today. Tomorrow at 1 o'clock, we'll be back with our quarterback power rankings. So until then, for Sam Teets, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening and watching The Grueling Truth